We tend to think that there are three kinds of critters in the world. The I don't want to say vegetarians. The herbivores, the carnivores, and the omnivores. But there are two very, very different types of herbivore. And that's where the whole lactose tolerance thing really happens. Ruminants are a particular type of herbivore. And they are a type of herbivore that can eat grass or hay. And hay is just basically preserved grass. You know, you cut it in the fall and store it in the barns for them to eat on during the winter. But ruminants, with the aid of a little bit of cud chewing and stuff like that, can metabolize, can eat, can live on grass and hay. Nothing else. Nobody else can do that. The rest of the herbivores, the more complicated herbivores, that must consume the more complicated agricultural products, grains, seeds, nuts, fruits, vegetables, etc. If there's nothing but grass to eat, all these other herbivores are going to die. And that is what made the big difference, that when as they were talking about, the crops were rotting in the field. I remember the potato famine in Ireland, that type of thing. And they had a whole lot of times when it was overcast for 3 or 4 years. They had volcanoes and things like that. And this was the time when the other animals were dying out, but the ruminants were surviving, because it's much easier to grow grass than it is to grow the more complicated agricultural products. And this is the thing that, when things were going badly agriculturally, produced this enormous push in the mutations when, you could keep your ruminants alive. You could keep the cows and the sheep and the goats alive, when the other type of herbivores and the agricultural products that you would like to eat were all dying. You could keep the ruminants alive because all they needed was grass. And that's really the big thing that made the difference. Okay. Grass will grow and ruminants can thrive on it. Hay can be stored over the winter. when all other agricultural crops have failed, ruminants can be kept alive and producing milk and storing it as cheese, and while all the other crops and animals fail. And it wasn't just the mutation of being able to drink milk. It was the fact that you could keep ruminants alive and producing milk when no other animals were surviving to keep you alive. Okay. Now I'm going to do a second video, a second pass at lactose tolerance that's quite a bit more serious than the first. But I think we now have enough background to make more sense out of this second video. And it's much more difficult. They're actually talking about people starving to death, and they're talking about the chemistry of all of this. And okay, so we've got Dean and Tom.
Dean's first.
Yeah, the sound effects were very irritating. And why is the milk green in both of those videos? But this that 3 or 4 separate mutations with different genes is fascinating, which is why I am a Darwinian, and Darwin would love this stuff. In other words, the same adaptation / mutation can occur separately. And so the areas where we are lactose tolerant have a strong genetic Northern European influence, which is Mexico, the US. Now, what about Native Americans, meaning Canada all the way down to the South America? They didn't have those creatures unless they were drinking jaguar milk or something. So, yeah, no, it's interesting stuff.
Okay. Tom?
I thought that was a pretty good video, except I the timeline that they were talking about bothered me. They were implying that there was a kind of ice age in Europe about 7,000 years ago. That's wrong.
No, the mini ice age, wasn't that?
Last ice age ended 11,700 years
There
ago.
was a European mini ice age, Crockett.
What happened, though, I think, is drought. Drought is drought and the causes of famine were drought and agriculture. So when crops failed, and because of agriculture, which was invented, what, 8,000 years ago, between 8 and 10,000 years ago.
Yep.
That people were dependent on just a few crops that were vulnerable to changes in climate. And when drought came, those crops failed. And that's why they needed another source of nutrition, which was milk. But the other problem I have with what they were talking about is the Yamnaya. They came into Europe 5,000 years ago. Not
I believe
7,000,
it's talking
not
about
7,000.
7.
It was not 7,000 years ago. It was 5,000 years ago. So
The migration started 7,000 years ago.
if they're the ones that brought this change, which I'm not sure is correct, then the resistance to famine must have been much smaller earlier on. So I'm not sure the timeline that they were talking about computes is all I'm saying. So they're putting a whole bunch of facts together. I'm not sure they jibe the way they put them together.
Yeah, I agree. The timeline, but I thought everyone had heard of the mini ice age in Europe. That was a real thing, and it was covered in the first video. It had to do with melting ice. It's not really an ice age, but they name it now. Today they have a new name for it, but it was just a general cooling off of Europe, disruption of the Gulf Stream, which keeps them alive, and all that. Yeah,
The
but
Little Ice Age, as I just looked up, says it occurred between 1300 AD and 1850 AD. So that's not what we're talking about.
oh, okay. That's a totally, yeah, I stand corrected. Right. That's not prehistoric. That's historic.
Yeah.
Yep. I stand corrected. Thank you.
Okay, the impression I had was that the Yamnaya began their migration on the other side of the Urals like 7,000 years ago. And it was kind of slow at first. But particularly after they got, through the Urals, then it really picked up with speed.
Yeah, according to what I'm reading, that happened between 3300 and 2600 BCE, which is well far under 7,000 years ago, closer to 5,000 years ago. So,
Well, again, I think it was slow at first because they had to come across the Urals. And then it speeded up a lot.
And real quick comment. They weren't drinking cow's milk or goat's milk or sheep's milk. They were drinking horse milk, mare's milk. That's what they had.
All
That was
three.
in the video.
that's what they showed in the pictures.
Yep.
All three.
Well,
It could be that they domesticated cattle too. I don't know.
I think the horse people, I mean, horses are ruminants, but I think the horse people were more migratory. And
because
people-
horses can run faster than cows. Yeah.
the people who were farming cows and goats were more settled villages. That was the impression I had. And you also had this business where they were getting quite a bit of use out of the milk products before the mutation became, so heavy that they were getting fermented products, the hard cheese and things like that. They were getting some use out of it before the lactose tolerant mutation really took over. Dude?
Yeah, I was reminded that why hard cheese, yogurt, cottage cheese, etc., is because instead of this bacterial fermentation happening in our small intestine, and upsetting us, it happens in a cheese vat or an urn or whatever. Yeah, no, that was, yeah. Yeah, in other words, we do it external, we do that digesting of the lactose externally, and then we consume it. So, yeah.
Yes. And that was why, we had those slides right near the beginning where they talked about, plain old milk had shitloads of lactose in it that you had to worry about. And when you got to really hard cheese, not so much. Yeah, Dean. And butter, practically not at all.
You're muted, Dean. Dean, you're muted.
The fad towards everybody orders almond milk at Starbucks and all that because they've heard of lactose intolerance, and so they just assume they are lactose intolerant and do things that are may or may not. There's nothing wrong with almond milk. There's nothing bad about it.
Except for the lectins and stuff like that in it.
Yeah.
Okay, can we go on? We are, let's see. I got to get back to sharing me. Are you unshared?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, this is a very short video, and it just goes into some of the a little bit of the chemistry of both lactose tolerance and other tolerances that I thought was helpful. So I'm gonna get out of sharing again and let Stan run this one. This is only about 5 minutes long, I think.
That was an interesting video, though.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to mention. I'm not lactose intolerant, but I don't drink a lot of milk. But I am very, and I can't think of the word, but I just AI'd it. Carb, as in wheat. Wheat is anathema to me. Wheat is what gives me diarrhea, gas, bloating, etc., etc. I can eat beans. Beans are not the musical fruit for me. They're it's no problem if I don't have a frickin' flour tortilla with them or bread. And when I started on Atkins and learned about Ezekiel bread and now the Dave's 21 grain, I can digest that. I cannot, I'm not a cow. I can't eat grass. And that does relate to the type C hunter-gatherer.
You're not a ruminant.
I'm not a ruminant. Yeah,
None of us are.
but I love it. I mean, Wonder Bread, yeah. Don't put it in front of me because I'll consume it and then regret it. Now, literally, when I go out to eat and there's biscuits or anything with wheat in it, I have to really modulate myself to feel well after the meal. And at home, I don't eat that stuff. Period.
Yeah, that's probably the gluten.
Thank you for the word. Yeah, gluten. I am allergic and allergic to gluten, basically. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can't eat Dave's because I'm allergic to pit fruits, which includes cherries. And for some strange reason, Dave puts cherry powder in all his breads.
Really?
Yes. So you have to read labels very carefully.
Oh, yeah, you do.
So, yeah, I can't eat pit fruits. I can't tolerate crustaceans like shrimp. And it was one other thing that, sugar alcohols, like maltitol, sorbitol, which basically is gum. Gum's mostly sorbitol. And those types of things. Anything that ends in OL plus inulin, which is
What
popular these days.
what about acai?
That's fine.
That's fine. Stevia, that's fine.
Yeah, stevia is good.
Yep.
Anyway, different people have different tolerances because their genetics are all a little different. So it's very interesting.
All a little different. Understatement of the, yeah, we are all unique.
Oh, I wanted to mention one other thing. I had been taught early on, I think probably by my mother, that you should chew your food. Don't bolt your food because your digestion starts in your mouth. And I just learned that a lot of that is due to the amylase digestion.
Well, I learned the
digesting
term.
starch.
Yeah, I grew up as don't wolf your food, chew it, masticate. It's like the count 23 times is what you're supposed to chew food until it becomes mush in your mouth and then you swallow it. Yeah, no, I learned that early on. I don't know how our family knew that, but they somehow knew it.
But now I know it's mostly the amylase digestion that's going on there.
Okay, shall we go on? We are very close to the future, so
Yeah, let's get there now.
let me see if I can.
Go back to the future, as the movie says.
Yes. Oh, there we go. And now for the future. Okay. As futurists, is there anything we could or should do for the 65% of the human population who are still lactose intolerant? Now, there are synthetic additives, the most common one going under the name Lactaid, that can be added to milk products, because you want to be able to taste these things without any of the unpleasantness of all the symptoms of lactose intolerance. Is that a hand or a fist or?
No.
Oh, okay. And it is now possible to genetically engineer the perpetual on switch in the babies of the lactose intolerant. In other words, if everybody in Japan decided that they would like their children to be lactose tolerant, it would be fairly easy to do this. And it would probably be possible in a few years to do this on a mass basis with a harmless viral vector.
And
Always assuming these people would want to do this as a public health measure.
that's why my hand went up, that last paragraph. So we can't even get people to take the measles vaccine. Are you kidding me? And define harmless viral vector. Has this been tested on mass populations, or we're just hoping it's harmless? And how do they know it's harmless? They test it on mice or whatever?
I imagine. I mean,
I don't want to imagine. I want to know.
okay. I know that right now it is possible to genetically engineer on an individual basis.
Lee, I don't know. And so you're not talking about selecting or tweaking the embryos or whatever. You're talking about doing, what's the word? Gene
don't know.
tweaking after you're alive, after you're conceived, right?
Uh,
I forget the term.
born?
The other kind of genetic manipulation that happens environmentally, etc.
You're talking about after you're born.
You gave me the term 2 weeks ago, but I don't remember it. I didn't write it down.
Well,
I don't know what the question is.
Well, the question is there is a term. It's why identical twins, genetically identical, can end up different because it's the.
epigenetic.
Thank you for the word epigenetics. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I know that experiments have been done on mice and, things like that, mammals. Doing this sort of gene tweaking with viruses after they are born, after they're adults. But nobody has tried this on human beings yet.
And we're not allowed to test it on primates or anything like that anymore. That's politically or whatever. Chimpanzees. And she mentioned in that last video about chimps and because all the other apes,
Primates?
primates. Thank you. Do only humans have developed that lactose tolerance. Am I correct?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yes. No other mammals, just people.
No other mammals, period. Yep. Yeah, even orcas. I was watching a thing on orcas, and the babies stay around for about 2 years, and mom says, "Nope, you're gonna learn to eat seal meat now. Thank you very much."
Now, everything that we're talking about here is basically, would it be a good idea, but it's mostly a matter of taste. Now we get into, in the future, would such a thing, such a mass creation of lactose tolerance in that 65% of people be a good idea? And one thing that has occurred to me is that there are a number of bad things that can happen in our future. Disasters, the sort of disasters that produce this change in Northern Europe. And the sort of disasters I am thinking of are civilization ending, but not population ending. In other words, we would go back to a not high technology. We would no longer be civilized people.
Mad Max.
What?
Mad Max.
Yeah, well, okay. A giant meteor impact would certainly do that.
Nuclear war.
Yep, I think I have nuclear war down here somewhere. Let's see. A Carrington event, a major giant destruction of the electrical infrastructure, a major plague, a climate disaster.
Well, we're having one of them right now.
Well, not quite yet, but we're likely to go off that knee pretty soon.
But my question is, all of you non-Darwinians see that the goal of human beings is to overpopulate the earth. See, I don't believe that. I believe that disasters and whatnot are how evolution took place. And yeah, can it affect human beings? Yeah. Should it? Well, there's no should, there's no right or wrong. I mean, it's a bad thing if, let's say, 40% of the population, like Europe and the Black Death and all that, it's a bad thing for those that die. For the ones that survived, it probably was a good thing, right?
Oh, it probably wasn't much fun even for those who survived.
It wasn't much fun, but I'm saying, does it make if you get rid of some of the ants out of your ant farm, the ant farm will survive better. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I am suggesting that there might be a reason why we would think about giving a greater percentage of the human population this lactose tolerance, because it would give them a better chance of surviving, you know, in the case of all of these disasters.
Right. And then they would become dairy farmers and pollute the planet with methane gas. Is that a good thing? I mean, wheat and whatnot do not give off methane last time I checked. So I don't know. There's a whole lot of questions here.
Well,
And come back in 1,000 years and we'll know. You know.
Under the circumstances of a disaster that she's talking about, I don't think that we're going to concern ourselves with methane from cows if the cows are keeping us alive. There's a point to where you have to kind of choose your favorite vices and issues and so forth.
And time's up, but yeah, everybody will choose to live and for their progeny to live, right? I mean, that's our hardwired instinct.
Tom,
I agree that our dependence on domesticated grains, our agriculture with the cash crops and all that kind of thing, is not good. We have too narrow a range of food sources for long-term survival in case something happens.
yes.
One of the possible options is lactose tolerance and raising grass eaters. Generally, that's not a very efficient way to do things. But in the case of when the crops fail, that's one of the possible backups. There might be other backups we might want to consider too. I'm not sure what they would be, but some other way of gaining nutrition that's essential for our life, other than either milk or grains. I mean, there's also other kinds of foods such as fruits and vegetables, but we're talking about if those fail.
Potatoes, sweet potatoes,
Yeah, like the potato famine
beans.
in Ireland.
Think back,
Nuts.
exactly, you read my mind. The potato famine. Well, they didn't have potatoes and we gave them to them and then they died. Yeah.
Yeah, but their problem was monoculture.
Right.
They had only one variety of potato.
Right, and so this lactose tolerance would make people more able to consume another kind of nutrition. So it's not so monoculturalistic or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But there may be other options too that we could consider.
Right. It is also possible that if we do not have a disaster, a giant meteor or whatever, and we continue, we are going down in population now. And basically,
Really, globally?
Some people,
Yes.
not all people.
Yeah.
It's all one planet. We're not, but we're getting there.
yes. And generally speaking, cities do not reproduce themselves. And anytime you have a serious concentration of civilization, the number of children goes down. And we would have the possibility of farming meat without animals. In other words, growing protein in vats. We can do it right now, but it's expensive and difficult. But if we got serious about it, we could get rid of the whole methane problem. The cows would not be farting.
If we're going to survive on
But
the
it's
moon,
It's
Right.
not cow farts, it's cow burping. Cow burping that produces methane. 80% of the methane is produced out of their mouth, and that's a fact.
Well, all right,
So anyway, as I
but they wouldn't be burping.
there are several different approaches that we could consider. You're considering here genetic manipulation to make people more lactose tolerant. Well, what about genetic manipulation to enable us to photosynthesize? I mean, there are lots of things that we could look toward in the future.
Yep,
And the lactase gene is maybe one of the easier ones to manipulate, but there are other possibilities too.
Yeah, quick follow-up, and David has his hand up. But yeah, we put animal genes in crops now, Monsanto, etc. Why not put plant genes in people? Yeah, interesting, Tom.
yeah, I know of at least one science fiction book, and it is based on some pretty good science that talks about getting people's skin to photosynthesize.
Yeah, the physics of that is that we probably wouldn't generate nearly as much energy as we do by how we ingest food now, but it would enable us to survive at least.
We'd have to metaphorically put down roots.
Yeah, as I recall, they end up getting most of their nutrition from photosynthesizing, but they have to eat some things for vitamins and, they end up eating salad greens and things like that.
Yeah, we need more than just sugars.
Um, but it's not blue sky impossible. It's
Aren't we going to have to do that if we're going to space travel?
what aren't we going to have to photosynthesize?
Have to find different types of food sources, different ways of eating?
Well, if you want to really send humans far distances in space, you have to do it in suspended animation.
Well,
Or generationally.
That would take a lot of mass and everything else to support a population that's living
Yep.
and burning energy.
Yep. David. Oh. David had his hand up.
yeah, David, are you there?
Uh-oh.
Okay.
His hand went down and we don't hear him, but yes, technical issues here.
Okay, we have 5 minutes or so. Do you have anything else, Carol?
This is the end. This is the last.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to talk about,
Well, Carol, this has been a good presentation. I don't think that I've ever really seen and heard about just how critical this ability to become lactate tolerant has become to humanity. And, you know, I do know that we had, when we came to, when the early Spanish came to America, they brought plagues to the Native Americans that had something to do with the fact that we were raising cattle, and I guess the smallpox. They weren't ready to take that kind of interaction with what they were mixing with the Native Americans in South America and so forth. And many of the South American tribes they were basically disappeared because of disease, not battle. So that's maybe another attribute. I think that's what I understood mostly about the advantages of having been raised with farm animals and horses and pigs and goats and cows, is that we got sort of that kind of genetic makeup transferred. But I didn't understand that it was triggered by the need for lactose tolerance, so that we could survive without having to grow crops just by drinking the milk of the ruminants in our presence. That's a very interesting part of the story that I wasn't very clear on before.
yeah, I learned an enormous amount in the course of doing this. I did not know a lot of it when I started out.
So thank you for that presentation.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, you opened a very large can of worms that I'll use to go fishing with. But you know, I'm thinking about the black areas on the map, right? So South America and Asia, well, and yeah, and the lactose intolerance of Asia, yeah, I've known about that for 50 years since I read Diadamo, or 40 years at least. But yet they've managed to overpopulate without being lactose tolerant. So, you know, yeah, what's the goal? I guess the goal is what's the opposite of culture for food. In other words, the ability to eat a varied diet is a good thing, period, right?
I think so.
I would think so.
One thing I noticed, and sorry not to raise my hand, the one thing I've noticed that on your map is that there's a dissimilarity or dissymmetry between the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, meaning that you would think that there would be lactose tolerance in the northern hemisphere, then near the equator there would be lactose intolerance because they didn't have the ruminants and so forth. And then it would repeat, the northern half of the earth would repeat itself on the southern half of the earth because it gets cold again on the South Pole as it does on the North Pole. Is there something about the southern hemisphere?
Well, yes, but you have the fact that essentially, like Australia was,
An island?
Populated by the
yes,
British,
but
so
but-
they're all lactose tolerant.
Yeah,
all the whites in Australia basically came from England.
Yeah,
England was extremely lactose tolerant.
and that
England
was
and Ireland.
that was way late in the historical transfer. They all went there with that particular
Right.
characteristic right with them.
Yeah,
But see, the piece of the puzzle missing is, Argentina is not Hispanic at all. I mean, it's European, German, Italian, especially, happens to be Spanish speaking. Um,
How about
But-
South Africa?
well, I know that's weird. I know. Yep. But you see, for something to develop in a different part of the world, you have to have the genetic push to that, which means the famine, right, which created it in Europe, and so in other words, so if Europeans move to wherever, right, the well, I mean, they do spread that lactose tolerant gene around, so you would think that the population, but I guess you survive whether or not you have that.
for instance, the entire American population, again, basically came from Europe.
Tom,
Okay, guys, you can't put Europe all in one bucket.
Yeah,
Northern Europe and Southern Europe are very different. The
Yes.
Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, probably far less than half the people there are lactose tolerant.
Yep.
And those are the people who populated South America.
Right. They kept saying Northern European,
Northern Europeans largely populated the US.
Yep.
Canada was not quite as tolerant as the US, I noticed. And that's maybe because of the French influence, which is a little less tolerant than England, but still pretty good. So
and Asian possibly. There's pretty large Asian population, and
yeah, all the Native Americans basically came over from the Far East, 10 to 20,000 years ago, 13 or so. Before that,
you mean across the land bridge from
before the
Siberia?
yes, before the
Okay.
tolerance was developed, even in Europe. So,
Yep.
so they didn't have that tolerance.
Yeah. And and speaking of Argentina and some other places, that reminds me of another case of convergent evolution, that the genetics for being able to operate well, healthily at a very high altitude.
That's genetic.
We get that in Nepal, the people who end up as Sherpas have a particular mutation that makes them much more capable than most others. But there is a totally different mutation in the South American,
Andes.
yes, in the Andes. It accomplishes exactly the same thing, but it's a totally different mutation.
I'm wondering if it's similar to the mutation of the people who can deep sea dive and stay under for minutes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I told Stan it's a fact. I once held my breath for 4 minutes underwater. But part of that is
That
just,
explains a lot.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there's his secret.
I also dove to 165 feet, which is yeah. So yeah, yeah, but anyway, you mentioned the altitude thing, and that is a clear example, well proven, of epigenetics, because people who come from Texas and then move to Colorado or wherever and live at altitude, um, then let's say they live there for a while, and this has happened anecdotally, but it's not just anecdotal. Then they go home, and let's say they don't go to Colorado for a while, but they retire in Colorado, let's say, and they come back and they can adjust to altitude in like a half a day or a day. And there is evidence, and it'll take some time, that epigenetic change happens in their children also. That their children, I mean, it's anecdotal right now, but that their children, when they take them skiing for the first time or whatever, and they're at 11, 12,000 feet, they adapt faster. And everybody will adapt to some extent, not like a Sherpa, that's generational, or an Andean. But yeah, the epigenetics is a fascinating thing.
But definitely there are people who cannot adapt to, say, Colorado's, mile high. They're always a bit sick when they're living at
Yes,
that altitude.
some people do not adapt to elevation.
Yeah.
Correct.
If you go to Peru and go up to Machu Picchu, I think they give you something to eat or chew, which has something that's some kind of drug in it that's supposed to help you survive
That's right. Hmm.
the low oxygen.
Yep. All
Thank you. Thanks, Carol. I gotta go. Thank you.
I should.
This is related vaguely. Camping with my dad at 10,000 feet, right? And he making coffee in the morning, and the coffee is boiling. I mean, boiling. And he goes, "Go ahead, drink it. It's not hot. Trust me, it's lukewarm."
Mhm.
Yeah, which blew my mind as a kid.
That was one of the, I don't know, something that Edmund Hillary was reputed to have said that I just found fascinating. You all know who Hillary was? He was the
Yep.
um
He was the second person to climb, except that
the second person
Sankey let him go first. Yeah.
made it to the top of Everest, yes. But someone asked him what he considered the chiefest hardship of high altitude climbing. And, he thought about it for a moment. And this guy was from New Zealand, but very much of a British
Yep.
history. And he said, well, the chiefest hardship I have found in mountain climbing is that water boils at such a low temperature at the high altitudes that you cannot make a decent cup of tea.
Cup of tea. Yeah, I've heard that several times. Yeah.
Next week, I want to just mention before we all leave, Stan's going to be talking about photonic computing, which I mentioned a week or two ago when I was talking about AI.
Yep.
Yes,
2 minutes. So he's going to enlarge on that.
he's not still, oh, Stan is still there.
Well, no, he's upstairs eating, and he
Oh,
didn't leave me host this time. But that's,
And I have to get going, but thanks, Carol.
who,
That
who
was
is host right now? Well, Stan is host. See, how come it says Stan Bissinger, and during the whole meeting, he passed the host to someone, I think.
not me.
Not
no,
me.
oh, actually, I have to get going pretty quickly myself.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, you're gonna make me go out and fertilize my lawn?
Thanks, Carol.
But
Yeah.
I certainly learned a lot in researching this, and I hope the rest of you did too.
A plethora of things that I was unclear of. And then thanks to
No,
Tom.
that
the-
word is misused.
Yeah, I know.
Plethora actually kind of means a surfeit, like too much.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Yeah. A
it
plethora
can mean
doesn't,
just a plenty,
it can mean overabundance.
Yes.
yes, but it can,
It's not really a cornucopia. It's more like an overabundance.
Yeah.
okay.
Well, yeah, sometimes when I use plethora, as in you give me a plethora of information and I can't consume it that fast. Yeah, it's an overabundance. So yeah, I think I use it semi-correctly.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.